You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. The Cauldron of Hate, a story by Grant Baciocco. Chapter 24. Suprema smashed her fist through one of the giant robots just as another took a swing at her from behind. Sensing the robot's fist closing in on her, she flew out of the way with seconds to spare. The robot's hand smashed into the first robot, lodging into the hole that Suprema had made when she punched it. The two robots were quickly thrown off balance and came crashing down to the floor. Hovering above them, Suprema gave out a warrior-like yell and plunged fist first at Mach 3 towards the robots' heads, which were clattering against each other on the floor. There was a huge explosion as she pierced the robots' metal skulls, and they fell silent. Suprema climbed out of the wreckage of the robots and hopped to the floor. Surveying her destruction, she smirked. "Computer," she barked. "End simulation." There was a tweeting sound of acknowledgement from the computer, and a door slid open in the giant workout room. Several smaller robots came out and began the task of cleaning up the debris of the fallen combat bots and dragged them back to the repair station. Another door slid open in the workout room with a hiss, and the League of Goods butler appeared, straightening his tuxedo vest. "Miss Suprema," he said shyly, "I hate to interrupt your workout." Suprema didn't turn to look at him. She continued watching the cleanup. "It's fine, Stefano. I'm done." Stefano cleared his throat. "Yes, well, you see, you have a visitor." "It's fine, dear boy," a voice said. "I can announce myself." Suprema spun around to find the blinding skull strolling casually into the workout room. "This is nice. Very well constructed." In a flash, Suprema had closed the distance between them. The blinding skull came to a halt, Suprema's face now mere centimeters from his. Good morning," he stammered. "What are you doing here?" Suprema said quietly. "Well, I didn't come here to fight," the blinding skull said, raising his hands up in an effort to show he was not interested in a punch in the jaw. "I came to congratulate you on your team's big win." Suprema eyed the blinding skull suspiciously. She watched him for any signs of skullduggery, but, seeing none, nodded. "You must have known there was no way you could beat us." The blinding skull smiled. "Oh, yes, I made those calculations right before the big game. On paper, we were going to lose, and my calculations are never wrong." Suprema smirked and took a drink from her water bottle. "The funny thing is, though, sometimes calculations on paper don't take into account the randomness of the human element, or even the superhuman element." Suprema froze and turned to look at the blinding skull. "There was," the blinding skull continued, "no way the death rays could beat the heroes. Unless they played the best game of their life and the heroes mistakenly didn't take the death rays seriously. I never took that possibility into consideration because, well, let's face it, they are the death rays." "Well," Suprema said abruptly, "it's a good thing that the heroes did take them seriously and were able to win." Suprema turned to exit the room, seemingly done with the conversation. "Yes," the blinding skull called after her. "That last kick, that game-winning kick, that was something special." Suprema froze in her tracks but didn't turn around. The blinding skull smiled widely. Before the blinding skull knew what had happened, Suprema was face to face with him, her teeth bared, fists clenched at her side, ready to begin pummeling him. The blinding skull hadn't flinched, but he found it very hard not to do so. He just kept telling himself, "You're in the right here. You're in the right here." Suprema spoke softly, barely audible over the hum of her energy force. "What do you have to say about that last kick?" The blinding skull smirked, weakly, but he smirked. "Well, Suprema, I think both of us know how special that final kick was. It was the game-winning kick, and as the coach of the team, I don't think your team could have done it without you." The blinding skull didn't feel the pain from the punch until about 10 or 20 seconds later. In fact, the pain from hitting the steel wall on the far side of the workout room made him wince before his stomach even registered he had been hit. He simply just realized that he was lying on the ground, pulling himself up off the floor. Suprema was still across the room, hovering where she had been when she hit him. Breathing heavy, he knew he shouldn't antagonize her, but he couldn't help it. Why get defensive, Suprema? I think the world should know the lengths that you'd go to help some kids win a soccer game. Suprema began floating closer and closer towards the blinding skull. He knew another punch was incoming. You will tell no one, Suprema growled. No, the blinding skull said, wincing in pain as he got to his feet, using the wall to steady himself. I would never tell anyone. Suprema was closing quickly. He knew another punch was imminent, so he spoke quickly. That's why you're going to tell everyone. Suprema was dead silent. Only the hum of the alien plasma energy field keeping her afloat made any sound. The blinding skull was awaiting another blow, but none came. Suprema inhaled and then softly said, I will tell no one. The blinding skull frowned. Really? That's a shame. You see, I would have thought that owning up to the terrible things you have done is what justice was all about. Isn't that what you said we had to do in that press conference? Suprema had no response. The blinding skull suddenly felt braver than he ever had. He actually looked Suprema right in the eyes. You cheated. I know it. You know it. Worst of all, not only did you cheat to beat me, you cheated a group of good soccer players, your own Saddle River City heroes, out of an honest victory. Forget about how my kids feel. What happens to your team when they find out? Find out what, partner? Said a voice from behind Suprema. Suprema's head dropped. Peeking around her, the blinding skull could see the mighty ranch hand and LXO had now entered the training room. The blinding skull looked back at Suprema. You going to tell them, or shall I? Again, Suprema said nothing. Tell us what, amigo, LXO said. The blinding skull looked at Suprema for a second. She continued to stare straight at the floor. He slowly stepped around her, well aware that any moment she could destroy him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He pressed a few buttons on it and queued up the frame-by-frame video of the winning goal from the game. He tossed it over to the mighty ranch hand. With LXO looking over his shoulder, the mighty ranch hand pressed play on the device. There was silence as they watched the video. When it had ended, they both looked up at Suprema, who still had her back to them. Suprema, the mighty ranch hand said, is this video real or one of Skull's fakeries? Suprema said nothing. I assure you, it's real. The blinding skull, the mighty ranch hand, and LXO stood looking at Suprema. After a moment, she turned slowly to face them, her eyes darting from their stares to the floor and back again. She inhaled and spoke softly. I just wanted to make sure the good guys always win. There was another moment of silence, but it was abruptly broken when Suprema rocketed at full speed towards the ceiling and through the self-opening skylight that had been installed for just that purpose. The blinding skull, the mighty ranch hand, and LXO watched her yellow plasma trail disappear into the blue sky above Saddle River City. The blinding skull turned to the two other heroes, nodded his head, and found his own way out. Chapter 25. A clipping from the front page of the Saddle River City Bugle. The League of Good delivers shocking revelation. At a press conference this morning, two members of the League of Good, the mighty ranch hand and LXO, revealed that their teammate Suprema had actually cheated in the JYSO Soccer League final match that pitted the Saddle River City Heroes against the Saddle River City Death Rays. Video proof revealed that Suprema had used her supersonic speed to redirect the game ball during the match-winning goal. We are deeply saddened at Suprema's actions, the mighty ranch hand said. Cheating to win is not the hallmark of a true League of Good hero. We don't condone Suprema's actions at the game, and we are deeply sorry that they happened. We have, on behalf of the team, surrendered the city-wide championship trophy to the Junior Youth Soccer Organization, as well as making a sizable donation to attempt to right this wrong. When asked where Suprema was now, LXO offered, Currently, we do not know her whereabouts. We assume she may be off-planet. Suprema will always have a home here with the League of Good as long as she commits to playing by the rules going forward. Other than that, we have no idea where she is and when or if she will return. The Saddle River City Bugle reached out to the Junior Youth Soccer Organization for a comment, and they said that they had the matter under review and a decision would be forthcoming. The newspaper reached out to the Cauldron of Hate, the former supervillains and coaches of the team defeated in the finals, for a comment, but they declined to be interviewed. The citizens are left to wonder what could have pushed Suprema to this point and what her loss will mean for the city. You've been listening to the Cauldron of Hate. To download a PDF of the chapter you just heard, visit cauldronofhate.com. The Cauldron of Hate was written by Grant Baciocco. The story was edited by Liz Brown, and the audio was edited by Steven Staver. Music by Dan Ring. Special thanks to all the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who make this content possible. And a special mention to those who supported the producer level, including Dorothy Baciocco, Eve Cunning, Kathy Crawford, Tony Urbano, David Akers, Jamie Donmeyer, and Vicky Sebring. To find out more about becoming a patron, visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. This episode is copyright 2021 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com. You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.